Welcome to Epicenter, the hub of innovation in the heart of Helsinki, where ideas come to life and creativity thrives, where innovation meets community. Get ready to learn, network, and make an impact. Let's go.
All right, how are we doing today? There we go. All right, so this is what we do at Epicenter Helsinki. It's very interactive. You talk to me, I talk to you. We set the minds of our speakers at ease. So we're gonna make sure that we make this as fun as humanly possible. It's a very intense conversation that we're gonna have today, but all good things, right? Not too scary. Yeah. Okay. So, if you don't know, my name is Joey. I'm the head of community here at Epicenter Helsinki, and we have a tradition. We take the first 10 seconds of every single event that we host here, and we absolutely lose our brains. We scream, we shout, we holler, we clap, we get the positive endorphins going, right? Elle Woods said, "Happy people don't kill." Right? Right? If anyone saw that movie, right? So let's take the first 10 seconds and absolutely go crazy. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Yeah. There we go. Jumping in the corner. I can see you on the stairs. Get a little more excited up there. There we go. There we go. I've told this joke a bunch, so I might have to retire it, but I'm going to use it today. Just because, but little did everyone know that I record those applause. And every time I'm having a bad day, I just hit play. Like, "You're doing a great job, Joey. Welcome." Awesome. All right, that didn't land. I guess it's time to retire that joke. Got a bunch of non-smiling faces in the front. We're going to change that. I'm going to win you over. But like I mentioned, welcome to Epicenter Helsinki. We are a place, a hub and a playground for entrepreneurs, scaling companies who really want to come together to invigorate the local entrepreneurial ecosystem. The way that we support that is by hosting knowledge sharing events and networking opportunities that we do weekly. This is an opportunity to bring the brightest minds together to share idea, to network and grow. We believe that innovation lies within collaboration, and the best way to collaborate is to actually meet with one another. Yeah? Yes. Okay, so you're on board with me. So I want to welcome you to AI Surge. This is a monthly event series where we look into a myriad of AI applications, ethical considerations, from the complexity of multimodal deep learning to the transformative impact of AI in industries like retail, finance, and entertainment. Tonight, we want to discuss the compelling and controversial world of deepfakes and the ethical quandary surrounding them. So tonight, we've brought together 3 experts in the field to share their ideas on the future ahead. First, we'll start with a keynote that will focus on deepfakes from a cybersecurity angle, highlighting their role as a primary attack vector through example, video, voice, and image manipulations. We'll explore the pressing issue of disinformation, underscored as a top risk by the World Economic Forum, and provide a snapshot of the global response, including regulatory efforts like those in China. And then we're going to transition to a panel discussion where we'll navigate the multifaceted challenges and opportunities presented by deepfake technology, probing into the impact on cybersecurity, marketing, and legal governance. How does that sound? Great. Sounds like a lot, right? All right. This crowd, I'm going to get you. You're going to talk back to me. You're going to say, "Yes, Joey, you're so brilliant for putting this together. Where did you come up with this idea?" All right. So let's begin. So deepfakes is a term that has quickly infiltrated our digital lexicon. Refers to highly realistic and convincing altered videos, audio recordings made possible by advanced AI and machine learning technologies. These creations have the power to entertain and innovate, but also to deceive, presenting unprecedented challenges to cybersecurity. With instances of deepfakes tripling in less than a year and their use in malicious activities becoming more sophisticated, the urgency for a robust cybersecurity response has never been more clearer. Today, we're so lucky to have an expert who will guide us through the shadowy corridors of the digital phenomenon, revealing the silver lining of strategies and solutions to protect our digital integrity. He is renowned for his strategic mastery in cybersecurity, drawing from a rich background of confronting information operations and social engineering challenges. His insights are built on years of driving awareness around the complexities of cybersecurity and fostering digital trust. So please help me welcome to the stage Marco, who's the CEO of Silverskin Information Security. That's for you, sir.
Excellent, good to be here. Fun world of cybersecurity. Depends how you define your fun. This is fun for me, but it's a bit darker side. I've been talking about different aspects of deepfakes and disinformation for many, many years already. Even though the deepfake has been rising in the media lately, but it's been around for quite some time. It's not all bad, even though I tend to focus on the risks and concerns about the deepfakes and disinformation, but there's a good side also, a positive side. But that's not my area of expertise. When talking about deepfakes, we tend to focus on the videos. Well, for obvious reasons, but there's also voice, and there's also images. Those have been around for quite some time. Voice is actually coming more and more today. And well, videos is a combination of images and voice. So yes, it's all there, but we need to also take into account all different aspects of deepfakes. Deepfakes, as with images and voice, can be used for many purposes. In cybersecurity, those are heavily used on social engineering. Social engineering is used almost 98% of cyber attacks, one way or the other. Social engineering is effective because we tend to not notice on those. We use the same models in digital domain that we use in cyber or physical domain. And when you have enough information, you can create different kind of models. You can, from attacker perspective, you can choose your platform, your medium. It can be different social media platforms. It can be internet. It can be news. And you gather the information. And the information that we share on the internet is used against us. It's been used against us for many, many years from different angles and aspects. But in deepfakes, it creates more concerning challenge. Because, as I mentioned, we tend to form our trust model based on our physical domain models. So whenever you have your desired form of faces, voice, your hobbies, whatever you tend to do in the physical domain, all of those can be mimicked in digital domain. With the enhanced AI, with the deepfake voices and videos, it's almost impossible to not fall into those. These are real-life examples. Those images of faces, I've been using that for years. It's from the website called This Person Does Not Exist. So you just click on the website, and it creates a face, a random face. If this is being used in cyber attack, we can create face that interests you, because we all tend to have different areas of interest. The voice. Voice, as I mentioned, is being used more lately on these attacks. And it's fairly easy to just copy a small part of your voice and then create fake voice. We've had one incident in Finland, actually, quite recently, where Finnish was used as the fake voice. We tend to think that Finnish is a language that cannot be, well, we are safe in a way because this is so difficult language. But we are not. I mean, it's still same thing. You can mimic the voice if you can record the actual voice. When you combine the tone of the voice, the bass of the voice, and the image that you like, that's a powerful combination. If you add that on a video, well, yeah. The Zoom example, well, that one didn't work, but roughly a month and a half ago, in Hong Kong, someone managed to steal 25 million over the conferencing platform. They actually invited the person to be in a meeting. First they sent an email saying that, hey, I need you to do this money transfer. Because I'm the executive of the company, and I need to do this urgently, and you need to do this. And then they invited the person to the meeting, conference meeting, and they had a bunch of people in the meeting, all deepfakes, familiar faces, your colleagues. And then, yeah, I mean, the person who was in a meeting assumed that because this is the conferencing platform, I see my colleagues. Yeah, that's the real thing. So I'm doing the transfer. 25 million. Well, that sucks, but it happens. What they also did, and this is really interesting because you can also use these deepfakes or generated images to bypass your biometric kind of recognition. So, for example, facial recognition and those. So it's not just that we are luring the actual persons, but also the recognition solutions. The influencers, well, that's one thing. It's also always happening. We don't know who we are discussing with or chatting with. You can create your chatbots, or if you combine voice and video, then maybe that's also possible to actually, you think you are having conversation with real person. You don't. That's happening with the AI. Most concerning, and most alarming, and most influencing is the last one. And that's more on the disinformation. That's more on my personal favorite topic of influencing over information. We are not going to touch base that because it's a long discussion, but we will focus on disinformation. Because disinformation, we used to call that as a propaganda. More or less the same thing, but now we use digital domain. And it's far more easier, far more cost effective to use these platforms than print your flyers and try to use conventional medias like radios and TVs. Those are still being used. But it's easier to influence, for example, influencers. Then we talk about either disinformation or misinformation. Misinformation means that you share something which is not true, but that's unintentional. Disinformation means that you try to affect on something. You try to change the opinion. You try to gain something which is not necessarily meant to be in original focus. World Economic Forum publishes this kind of a risk or threat report annual basis. The extreme weather events or climate change, that's there always, and those are really heavy risks because we can affect on those, but it's a slow development. Cybersecurity has been there for a few years. This year, for the first time, disinformation and misinformation is number one, and that's for the next 2 years. Partly because we are having quite many elections coming in different countries. In US, in Russia, but that's not really disinformation, it's just how it goes. But in many countries like US, there's going to be elections happening this year. And because of the election system, how they have their political system, the disinformation plays a crucial role. So you can create fake news. That Trump says it's fake news, but that's really happening. And with the information we share in social media, in the internet, either intentionally or unintentionally, those can be used to really form the focus, the message towards us. And once the political system is what it is, you can actually affect on those. Um, and it has happened in the past. But then again, we also have a multiple of countries who are having either elections or some other situation where they want to, or someone wants to influence. Maybe through disinformation. By the way, Joey, the clock is not working, but that's fine. So you need to ping me when I'm closing the 20. So yeah, the disinformation and influencing over the information uses the same kind of approach that is being used in the social engineering. So you try to identify your group of, or target group. You select your platform or media that you want to use. It can be influencer, it can be different social media platforms, it can be, well, difficult, but it can be movies, it can be TV. For example, the last one is from the war. I'm not going to deep dive into that one. But Russia has been changing their focus from, well, originally they had focus on the social media. Once they banned everything, they are focusing on the traditional media. So they switched the media, the message is still the same. They're also trying to influence on different countries through different mediums, like TikTok, like X, the X Twitter. And then there's a multiple of different platforms on those. Fake news or false news are spreading much faster than the actual news. According to MIT, those are spreading 5 times faster than the real ones. And once it's out, it's there. Even though we are going to create some form of regulation, some form of identification for the false or fake news, for the deepfake, for example, those are still going to be spread around. That's the fact. Even though we place a watermark saying that, hey, this is deepfake, do not trust the source. We are still going to share that on a social media because it's funny, or the message is something that applies to us. We appeal on that one. We like that one. So we want to share that. Sharing the information means that it gets spread around. And not everyone will have the possibility to actually use those different mechanisms to spot the fake news or deepfakes. Unfortunately, that's how it goes. So we've covered partly and briefly the social engineering, utilizing and using the information. Some might think that it's like selling things. I used to be a sales guy, but that's not really the same thing. Although I tend to Google my counterpart in a meeting, I tend to find out their interests. If I can find something, hobbies are great. Hobbies of children's are even better. Then you can find the common ground. Social engineering works in the same way. Deepfakes and disinformation and information influencing over the information works in the same way. Same psychological steps, but for different intention. I still don't know my 5 minutes. 5, excellent. This is last slide. Deepfakes. As said, we focus on the dark side of the deepfakes. We focus on the media coverage on deepfakes, and that's usually and typically the attack vector, the cyber attacks or something. According to studies, 66% of the companies or organizations are actually seeing that. And as I mentioned, almost 98% of the cyber attacks are using some form of social engineering in them. So it's not just using the technical flaws or unpatched systems. That's part of it. But usually the chain is much longer than just one flaw. And social engineering is effective on that one. If we think about the content on different medias, on different mediums, majority of that will be one form or the other created by someone or something So we are seeing more and more artificially created content, and that's not necessarily man-made. It's just created. The last one, the 57%, that's the interesting one. It's quite large study, or survey actually, not a study, survey, and it's made by a commercial operator. They had a survey of 16,000 people in 8 different countries. And really just about trying to learn that if people know what deepfake is, can they spot the deepfake? In different countries, Germany, Mexico, and those, different countries had different portion of people saying that how they can spot the deepfakes. In Mexico, if I remember correctly, it was more than 80% of the people, or the responders, said that yeah, they can spot the deepfake. Germany, it was a bit more than 50. So different countries, different setup. And the interesting part of the study is that even though the 57% of the responders say that yeah, they can spot the deepfake, 71% of the responders didn't know what deepfake was. So I mean, and that's where we are. We don't know what deepfake is. Same goes with the social engineering, with the influencing, with the disinformation. We think we know, and that's part of the problem. We can't say that we don't know. We are not stupid. We bright people. We know this, but we don't, and that's where we are. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Marco's going to stick around for our panel discussion. So if you'd like to grab a seat, we'll bring up our next panelist, please.
Oh, thank you.
Let's give him one more round of applause. Okay, so we'll keep the momentum going. Our next panelist is an AI governance specialist whose diverse experience spans role in legal, international, and research organizations across Sweden, Brazil, and the US, specializing in AI governance, regulation, and human rights. Concurrently, she is pursuing a PhD in law and technology, focusing on AI accountability at Tampere University, and actively promotes diversity and inclusion in the AI industry as a responsible AI lead for Women in AI Finland board. Let's please welcome to the stage Bruna, who is AI governance specialist at CDOT. Next, I'd like to introduce an assistant professor of marketing at Hanken School of Economics and a member of the CPSS research group at the University of Jyväskylä, specializing in AI applications in marketing. His research interest spans the application of artificial intelligence in marketing, B2B marketing, and services marketing. He consistently shares his expertise by instructing bachelor, master's, and MBA students at several universities, both in Finland and internationally. His recent research on deepfakes attracted both national and international attention. So please, let's welcome to the stage Mikael, who is the assistant professor of marketing at Hanken School of Economics. Okay, so in today's digital landscape, trust is the bedrock of the relationship between consumers, media, and brands. Yet it's under threat from the rise of deepfakes. Let's mention Kate Middleton a little bit there, no? So the new challenges underscores the importance of ethical marketing and strong governance to navigate the thin line between innovation and deception. Establishing clear guidelines and fostering transparency can help build and maintain the public's trust, ensuring that the digital ecosystem remains a space for authentic engagement and innovation. So today, I want to discuss this sort of multifaceted challenges and opportunities presented by deepfake technology. And in the interest of time, we're going to kind of go right into that. So for Marco, I know that you just spoke, but we're going to keep the momentum going there. As we stand at the crossroads of innovation and integrity, cybersecurity is never been more pivotal, as you just mentioned. So with deepfakes increasingly threatening digital trust and security, can you share your perspective on challenges posed by deepfakes and the proactive measures that organizations should take to safeguard against this technology?
Yeah, that's
easy. Let's just start with an easy one.
Oh, thank you. No, that's a good question. And quite frankly, even though we wouldn't be talking about the deepfakes, companies and organizations should address the social engineering part somehow. So in deepfakes, there's no silver bullet. I mean, cybersecurity is always about finding the right balance between the cost and the measures and technical solutions. But there's no technical solution for this. So that's why you need to build the awareness and you need to measure that. That's the part that usually tends to be forgotten. So companies and organizations, they try to build the awareness, but they don't measure the actual effects. And this is really about educating people, trying to build more, I've been repeating the awareness, but it's really about the awareness.
Yeah, Bruno, you're shaking your head a lot. Do you agree with that? What are some steps that organizations should take to proactive measures? Do you think?
Yeah. No, I agree. I completely agree. I think this awareness question is also very key because, as we just saw from the presentation, it's not enough that we make all the control before the fact. So trying to work on measures, technical measures like watermarks and other ways to identify deepfakes if we don't work as well from the end of the receiver. So from the side of the audiences that are being affected, that are being manipulated. So the aspect of, let's say, digital literacy, AI literacy, all this conversation about the risks of disinformation and the impact, it's really critical. And we haven't talked about so far, but one of the biggest risks of deepfakes also affect women and young girls with pornographic fake content. That is an enormous problem, and we should also talk more about that and have this conversation ongoing in the public discourse and other spaces. So I fully agree.
Well, so I guess building on that, in your presentation, you mentioned that many people thought that they could identify a deepfake, but they didn't, quite really know what it was. So, considering the evolving sophistication of deepfake technology, what advancements in cybersecurity do you foresee being necessary to effectively detect and combat, these threats that we're talking about, misinformation and now potentially abuse, sexual abuse, and so on?
Yeah, the pornographic, I didn't mention that one, but it's a real problem. It's really, really difficult problem. Mm-hmm. And the victims on that one are not using the technological solutions. So there is no technological solution for that, unfortunately. On the companies, and what needs to happen, this is a bit of me thinking, we have this weird thinking that everything can be solved with technology. Everything, because it's digital, it's technical, especially in Finland, we tend to think that no matter what you have, you just solve that with some technological solution. And that's not going to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, there will be better solutions for detecting spam, detecting deepfakes, detecting, well, voice is different, but it's still digital. So you can have your watermarks or something. But still, you need to educate people. And you can't really outsource your responsibility as an individual. Because you need to learn that somehow. How these things are affecting, be more critical. And that's the role of the society.
Mikhail, let's bring you in here. What are your thoughts?
Well, first thought, like, relax, guys. It's not all bad news. We can make a lot of money out of it. So,
We'll talk about innovation as well.
yes, but yeah, I totally agree that when it comes to tackling the issue, we need a much more comprehensive approach. So technology itself is a part of it, but it cannot offer a complete range of protection from deepfakes. What I did in my research is that I have been developing a framework that basically includes 4 components. Like technology is definitely one, that what cybersecurity companies can do for, right? And then there is the second aspect is, of course, the regulation side. Like not only the technology, but what kind of protection we can receive from that aspect of law and regulation. And right now, so far I have seen is that field is rather patchy. Like we do not have concrete regulations to protect us from this problem. Hopefully are coming, but not very much yet. Even if we consider USA, for example, you would see that there are kind of piecemeal protections in different states, like something in California. But that does not apply even to one whole country. And then there is the third aspect, is the education aspect, like empowering the people, how they can actually develop this ability to detect disinformation. Not only, that also a double-edged sword, because that creates a situation where people have a lot of mistrust about everything that they see and they feel and they hear. So, but somehow we need to develop that ability that people know more about, hey, there can be disinformation and how to differentiate that from reality, right? And then, as Marcus was saying, that all this misinformation or disinformation, they spread basically on social media, right? You don't see that on Finnish National Broadcasting Center or something, that they are spreading misinformation, right? So the social media platforms, they actually should have a lot more responsibility about what can be done, whether that's from a technological side, that or that can come to empowering the customer, that, hey, we can, as a customer, I can report it easily. Or I can reverse search whether something is fake or not. But the platforms, or they can have humans who can fact check all these things. Many of these things are already in practice, but they need to do more. So all in all, it's 4 aspects: technology, regulation, education of people, and the platforms.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about each and every one of those. So thanks for setting that up. I think, we'll talk about public trust a little bit later, and there are news sources that do also spread misinformation, or misinformation is being spread across what would be looked as though as a reputable newspaper, but something has changed, right? Just briefly, and if you're kind of overviewing it, you might look at that. But let's talk about, deepfakes not only challenge security measures, but also blur the line in marketing ethics, yes. Right? So from a marketing standpoint, how can AI and deepfake technology be harnessed for brand enhancement without compromising ethical boundaries or misleading consumers?
Well, there are 2 things here. Whether we are talking about AI, which is a rather broad field, even we are talking about computer vision and that kind of thing, or deepfake itself. And if I just focus on deepfakes or AI-generated media, we have to think that only this year, the global market for online advertising is $258 billion. It's a huge market, right? Companies spend hundreds of millions on that. And actually, I was sitting in my office and was making a list of which ways we actually use this technology. And one is, for example, we all know that creating a video in marketing costs a lot of money. And it's a rather lengthy process. You need copywriters, you need content creators, you need graphics designers, you need video editors, musicians, so many different people, so much resources, and so much time to come up with a 1-minute long campaign. And now, I don't know how many of you have seen the latest ML model from OpenAI, Sora. Have you seen? Yes. How realistic the contents are from Sora. It's unbelievable, right? So, of course, content generation, or better, we call it omni-channel campaign. Like, traditionally, what we have always been doing is that creating separate content for social media, for Facebook, and we spend a lot of money there. Creating separate contents for advertising on TV. And now we can easily repurpose the same content for different platforms. Again, saving a lot of money. And then there are issues like hyper-personalization, right? Like right now, we still often use mass campaigns. If I put it on TV, I don't know whether it actually reaches my target demography. I want to target people, let's say, this age group, this income level, this education. But if I put it on TV, I don't simply know. On the other hand, with the deepfakes, I can target much more specifically. And what will happen is that it is very personalized in a way. Think of it like you open a campaign, and there is a celebrity there, and that person says like, hey, Joy, and then delivers you a message. That is going to be much more effective than watching something on TV. So from our perspective as a marketeer, we see that there's ample opportunities to save money, to do creative things, to explore new things, and but how to do it in an ethical way, within the boundaries, not only within the boundaries of law, but within the boundaries of ethics. That's the challenge. And that's a very much of uncharted territory, but we'll go there later, I guess.
Well, I saw Bruna's wheel spinning as you were mentioning, so I know that there must be a governance side to what you want to bring to this conversation, so please.
Yeah, no, totally. And just building on what my colleague was saying, actually, from last week, we do have legislation now. We have the AI Act that I'm sure that the audience is familiar also with that law at the EU level. And it's important to talk about that from a regulatory perspective because, of course, it is a very new the issue has some new aspects to it, but we have already tools and we have existing rules that are in place that should be observed, right? So, for instance, the AI Act defines deepfake. Literally, the definition is there at the beginning. And then we have the obligations, transparency obligations to providers, so the companies that are putting those technologies in the market. So, for instance, mentioning the obligation to inform or mark synthetic content using different means. So, watermark is one, but there are other technical standards being developed that will also be used to mark, disclose that what you're seeing is synthetic content, right? And also you have obligations from the deployers as well. So not companies that are developing, putting into the market, but companies that are using that product to produce synthetic media. So if you look at the regulatory landscape, it's not like, there are no rules. It's a no rules game. We already have these articles in place, and we also have DSA, Digital Services Act, that also brings the responsibility to exactly the very large online platforms. So, the Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of those large social media platforms, that they also play this important role because, as you were also saying, nobody will open your mailbox and you will find a deepfake in an envelope like this, right? They will. I hope not. And so the role of those social media platforms is key in this situation because they have this power to actually, do content moderation, put in practices, tools, and mechanisms for the content creators, people that are using those systems to generate synthetic content, to number one, disclose that they are creating, what they are creating is synthetic media. And number two, they have the role to moderate, okay, this video, audio, or image, is it fake? And if it's fake, what is the harm that it's creating? So it's disinformation, it's pornographic content, it's exploitation of a certain person, and it's impersonating someone. So there are a multitude of different harms that can be caused through this means of synthetic media. So to your question, the governance and the regulatory aspect, which are different, right? So you do good governance in order to be compliant. So the measures are not like one size fits all to solve this issue. It's a combination of different measures that should be the responsibility of different actors in this phenomenon. So in that way, we have what we call good governance.
Yeah, regarding the regulation and how to control those, we are in global domain. So even though we apply regulations on certain regions like EU, we still have the same applications in different regions, which may not have the same regulation and most likely won't have the same regulation. But the effects, for example, in US, the effects, what's happening in the US will affect us as well. So I'm a bit skeptic about it. I mean, I like regulations, but making good regulations is difficult, and also making those really globally effective. That's the challenging part.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking to the U.S., we sue first and govern later, right? So maybe not the bright shining example of what we should do. But I wanted to talk because you mentioned personalization, right? To be able to receive an email that says, "Hey, Joey, you look really great in these pants. Why don't you get them?" Oh, what is that look like? How would that be implemented without going too much into people's privacy and their information? Do we see that as a challenge?
Well, it's already there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been there for a while. I did mention briefly in my presentation. There's a quite good study made by the university in US, which I can't remember now. But they made a year-long study about purchasing data from data brokers. And that's a legal business. So data brokers are collecting information from different open sources, basically. And they spent this year to buy this or purchase this information of military personnel. And they purchased that from US domain and from Asia domain. And each of the data brokers, they had hundreds of data points of each individuals. So basically they knew everything about you. Where you live, your kids, your sexuality, your political opinions. Everything, your purchasing history. So the information is there already, and it's being used. So it's quite effective to target based on your individual information. And that is famous example of Cambridge Analytica. And there's a psychological profiling behind that. And it's had nothing to do with the Cambridge Analytica itself, but there's a PhD work on the psychological modeling of how this information can be used to profile you. And it's amazingly accurate.
So if we've seen this information already being used, have we seen a shift in consumer trust? Or are we, is a consumer feeling better that they're having more targeted information? Is there this sort of like, why do you know so much about me? Like, has there been a dip in either direction with brand loyalty and consumer trust?
Well, we already have a problem of mistrust from the consumers. Depending on the research you check, from 68% to 84% people do not trust on the advertisement that they see. So we spend a huge chunk of money, and then people trust more on recommendation from peers, or they trust more on the reviews. If you go to Amazon, people leave reviews, and the customers, what they do is they read the reviews, and then they make a purchasing decision, rather than trusting what we people, like the marketing people, are sending the message. And that's already a huge problem for us, that how to overcome that challenging scenario. And then now, what Mark was also pointing that there is this issue of mistrust more and more in people's mind. You know, that more they know that the information that they see, the voice that they hear, can be real or it can be totally fake. So we kind of see as society, it's not about marketing, you know, it's the whole society where truth is the number one victim. And when people don't trust, it requires a much more comprehensive approach than just us, company people or business people saying that, hey, trust us more, what we are doing is right. It does not work like that. And I don't have a ready solution to how to address this problem that we as a society are having this diminishing level of trust all the time. It's low trust in governance, low trust in security, low trust in everything. And that's a major challenge. And I don't have a ready solution of how to address this, honestly speaking.
If you did,
Yeah.
I think that would, or you might not be sitting next to me. But, you know, Marco, you mentioned that this is a global challenge, right? That we are working in a sort of global space. And so, Bruna, you know, the governance of AI technology, especially deepfakes, is something that we should be looking at global and requires a nuanced approach. So in your view, what legal and regulatory frameworks, I know you mentioned the EU packed a little bit, but what are essential to managing these risks? You know, for individual rights and on a societal level as well.
Yes, yes. So as I was mentioning, we do have already important laws in the EU, but that is like what we have as this before the fact. So the goal of the entire AI Act and the ESA is to prevent harms. So understand risks, address risks, there is entire risk mitigation at the core, and to prevent harms to occur. But other than that, what I have been working as well in my research, we should have better solutions for after the fact. So how to deal with when people have been harmed, because that is a really important open question that we don't have still all the answers. So, for instance, from the AI, not only talking about synthetic Gen AI and deepfake now, but talking about AI in general, right? So we have like liability regimes that are already being proposed. So trying to bring this aspect of how to remedy, how to bring redress when people have been victims of harm through the use of AI. And that is still in my research, I have identified, and also a big part of the scholarship identifies that it's far from being ideal. So how to deal when people are being harmed by AI technology, and in this case, let's focus on deepfakes. We talked about people that are exploited. We talked about young women and girls that are victims of deepfakes for pornographic content. We talked about this technology being used for fraud, for impersonation, and so on. So how to deal with the aspect of how do we address harms, and how do we bring redress and remedies. So I think that is a very open question in this space. But you talked about from the global perspective, and I agree with you. Of course, the laws in the EU are not, applicable directly in other parts of the world. But we know that, especially in the digital space, we have what we call the Brussels effect. So what this means basically is that when some critical people say, the EU is exporting laws. That's the biggest EU export, is regulation. So what that means is that other jurisdictions are replicating the models that we are having in the EU. We saw that with the GDPR, for instance, a few years ago. So although, of course, it's not enforceable in outside the EU, but we see clearly that the design of the legislation, for instance, the AI Act, the risk-based approach is being already replicated in other parts of the world. So although it's not formally enforceable, it is, influencing the lawmaking process and the governance and policies in other parts of the globe. Because it is, of course, a global issue, and there is no, it's not bound by any borders, any physical borders. So I think that is a positive outcome of digital regulation that is coming out of the EU, is this effect that is having in other parts of the world. And okay, we can talk about the US. There's very little legislation there, but we can see the impact of those laws also in a voluntary basis. So companies that operate in a global market, if they have to operate in the EU in a certain way, they very well can replicate that model of governance mechanisms, best practices, guidelines, throughout the entire organization globally. So we also have that effect in a voluntary basis. So.
Yeah. Well, then I open this to the panel. How do we, foresee international collaboration evolving? What do we think are the next steps, and what roles should this sort of play? This global institutions play in a concerted effort for collaborating. Where do we see that moving forward?
On deepfakes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, AI government. I mean, obviously, this is a certain part of it. But if we look at the risks of, let's just say the U.S. Election, right? This is something that everyone has got a keen eye on right now, because Russia has done it once, and they've already tried again already. So. It's a keen interest of everyone, right? But how do we foresee international players collaborating more? What if crystal ball, where are we in the next 5 years when we look at this?
Yeah. Well, we are already seeing that. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was this tech accord document that was voluntarily signed by large tech corporations that operate globally, and they are committing, here I do like this because it's voluntary, but they are committing to take measures to prevent the risks of deepfakes in elections. So you can say that is a global, initiative. Yes, it is, because those are global companies, very, very large, massive corporations. They operate globally, and yes, that is voluntary. Maybe it's not so effective, but it's a means of international collaboration. It's a means of global governance, if you will. And also, there are other actors, not only private companies. There are international organizations. There's, for instance, OECD. You presented a lot of resource from those international organizations that provide a lot of excellent sources, studies, guidelines, all different types of contributions to international governance coming from international organizations like those, UNESCO and so on. And also, we should also not forget about civil society and their movements, their ways of organizing, and this action that comes from civil society, from NGOs, from what we're doing here today, right now, right? This is one example of how you can bring the conversation, how you can talk, how you can inform, how you can discuss. So here, right now, it's an example of an initiative that contributes to this, and you put all kinds of actions like this together, then you have a systemic way of facing the problem.
I saw you reach into your pocket to find your list.
No, please, there's something there.
We're gonna open to Q&A because we won't be able to hear you without a mic. But we're gonna go. We have plenty of time for questions. But if you have an answer to that, then please say it on the mic. But do you want to add in?
Yes. So the thing with regulation and technological evolution is regulation is slow. So we try to create regulation, but it takes time. It takes years, and changing the regulation takes even more. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, the pace of the evolution is extremely fast. And that's the difficult play. How to balance the actual evolution of technology. We are seeing almost, well, quantum leap is the right term because quantum is also coming. So there's a lot of different development on that one. So the regulation is lagging behind, and it will, well, remain like that. We are mostly talking about developed countries. So EU, US, China to some extent. But there's a whole globe behind that one. In any given time, there's more than 20 different conflicts in the globe. We focus on a couple of those. There are elections. There are billions of people who are not covered by any of these regulations. But we focus on certain parts. So I have my doubts on creating consensus between the global giants of social medias or any, because I'm skeptic. And there's money involved, and when there's money involved, we bend the rules, and that's how it goes. And so it's a constant battle between all these different things. So we shouldn't trust purely on regulation or purely on collaboration or ethical aspects on any of the companies.
Is there anything that we can kind of lean on?
Well, we follow the money.
Follow the money.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's how it goes.
Okay.
Someone will misuse that.
Well, we've talked a little bit about public perception growing, particularly in sensitive areas, right, like elections. There's no doubt in mind that these are going to continually be a focus of deepfakes, especially given the power that they hold to spread, misinformation. We, saw already in the election that a fake robocall of Joe Biden in New Hampshire calling his constituents, telling them not to vote for him. It was his voice, and it was 150 euros they paid this actor to do, and he used a program that $150, and he used a program that cost $1, right, to create this voice, and so. We've constantly sort of been told that we need to be on the lookout for very sophisticated deepfakes, right? That the technology is so sophisticated, but in actual reality, some of it is really kind of basic and not as advanced as one would lead to believe, which goes back to some people saying that they could spot it and others saying that they couldn't. So I want to take all of that into account here and really look at news organizations, right, and social media platforms. Okay, follow the money, right? Maybe they don't have it in the best interest to rebuild or even maintain trust. But if we were to live in sort of a utopian society where they actually care about this, what can be done? What should news organizations, what should newspapers be doing? What should social media platforms be doing to rebuild trust and maintain that? This is for everyone.
Well, I would kind of like to look at it from a bit broader perspective, because as we have been listening in this discussion, that you cannot control the negative effects solely based on regulation. The way or at the pace that the technology is developing is way faster than what the government can do to catch up. And you have talked about ethics, right? And I've been thinking about that aspect because at the end of the day, that makes us human beings to have some ethics in what we do. And this brings this professor side of mine because, when you talk about ethics, particularly in relationship to AI, there are two ways to look at it. One, what we call like this deontological ethics. And another one is this consequential ethics. Deontological comes from the word deon, like duty. That we do the right things because it's the right thing to do, as simple as that. And irrespective of the consequence, we'll do the right thing. And that comes to deepfake as well. On the other hand, there is the consequential ethics, which means that we can do things that are not right to reach an end which is right, to have a better future, to do something better. Now the question is, which side we should take as organizations? Should we look at the ontological ethics and do the right thing, no matter what the consequence is, or can we reach good consequence, but bend the rules in the process, And he was just showing this misinformation or disinformation campaign in Russia. And I was also checking some news, and just one news that caught my eyes is something in the Inception in USA, written by Sam Biddle, and he was showing, based on the purchase data of United States Army, is that the Special Operation Command, which is in charge of technology of US Army, they have actually paid contractors to develop deepfakes. And the sole goal is that how to have information, disinformation, misinformation, whatever, campaigns in other countries, not inside USA, but in other countries that they consider adversaries. So can we actually take a stance like this where some entities, whether that's government or large corporations, are allowed to do things and they will offer justifications that it's the good for us, and then some will not have that freedom, so different sets of rules for different people? Or can we stick to a thing that, hey, this is true and that's it? Like, we do the right thing irrespective of having different sets of rules for different people. And I would say that because we cannot control things with rules, regulation, law, they're so fragmented over the globe. Some sort of ethical boundaries or ethical moral compass is very much needed in the current world. But that's my take on it.
Yeah, well. Now, of course, I have a different approach, but we can talk more about that later because you asked about social media platforms and media channels, right? Like publishers and information distribution, what they could do. I think that it should start from transparency, right? So if you think about this entire idea of watermarks and what is being called mechanisms to disclose, mechanisms to inform the provenance of content. So basically you inform the origin of that content, if it's synthetically generated, how it was generated. So this is all based on this ethical principle that is also informing our current regulatory landscape called transparency. So the way to build trust, the way to develop this conversation and make the content, the information distribution robust and high quality, trustworthy, it starts with transparency. So that's why the idea of watermarks or other means to identify synthetic content is so important, because it's all about being transparent to the audience that is seeing that certain video or listen to certain audio or seeing certain images, that is not a natural, original image, video, or audio that is synthetic. In other words, it's generated by AI. So I think that is the starting point, that those actors, very large online platforms, news channels, search engines, that's how they should start their actions in order to address this issue.
No, I fully agree. The transparency is the key. Somehow to spot and identify those things. But then we need to educate people to how to read those. And then there's Finland ranks actually really high on those research, where we it's a media literature review, something like where they do in EU, and Finland ranks on top of that one. And there's been really interesting projects in different schools in Finland to actually teach kids how to read the media, how to spot different fake news, how to be more
Critical.
critical towards this source and so forth. So it all goes down to education, and that's a long route, but it needs to happen.
Yes, but that also creates the problem that people do not trust what they see and what they hear. And from my field, from the field of business, that's a problem when they have a large population and they are very skeptical of everything that they see over the media, or any form of media, whether it's social media or what is a big TV, or doesn't matter. I spend money or we spend money, and it brings very little result because people do not trust. And the level of trust, as I said, like going down and down and down. No answer to this that we have right now, what to do with this. But we need a society where there is truth is held high, but at the same time, people have trust. Trust in each other, trust in institutions, trust in the society, trust in the government. All of those are eroding really fast. So.
Well, I mean, we definitely need to figure out a way to build that, right? Because how sad would it be to everything that you read, everything that you see, have to wonder, the validity of it,
yes.
or if it's a video from your mother, was it really her that sent you a greeting card? And I think that's such a slippery slope into a pretty sad society. And we can talk about where young people are getting their news from, right? Because it's not traditional news media, it's TikTok, right? And then also the creators that are creating that, where are they getting their information from? Because they're not scholars. So there is a conversation that we could also have about ensuring that creators remain on the right side of the ethics conversation too.
Yeah, but there's a huge variation between different countries how we trust, for example, governments or newspapers and so forth. In Finland, that ranks high. Once
Very
again,
high.
we tend to trust in those. In different countries, it's a different thing. So it's not equal between the audience.
But it has dipped in Finland as well, right? Trust in media has steadily declined from where it was before the war in Ukraine too, right? So there is that. So we can't kind of turn a blind eye because we are doing well, or we traditionally have
Life was
have done
easier
well.
back in good old days.
Yes. All right. So I promised that we would open it up to Q&A, and we're going to do just that. The gentleman here, but we are recording. So in order for us to hear you on the video, you'll need to speak into the microphone, and my colleague Paulina will make sure that you get a question asked. Yeah.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, so my name is Mikko Alasaarala, and the question is this. In the United States, they have this new legislation being sent to the Senate about banning TikTok because it's owned by a foreign adversary. And it has caused a lot of debate in the merits of government basically censoring information or requiring platforms to shut down based on some kind of involvement with the foreign adversary in some vague terms. And this kind of development has been actually ongoing everywhere in the world. China being very interested about this legislation also tells you everything about their interest in the whole platform, because they have banned the TikTok themselves in China, and at the same time they're criticizing the United States of banning it. It doesn't make any sense. The hypocrisy is high, but at this moment I see all the governments all over the world basically looking at this and saying that, hey, now we have a free speech in our country, but it's being abused to the max by all these adversaries. Russia is doing and having a field day during elections all over Europe, creating Brexit and creating all kinds of other chaos all over all the free countries. And now the governments are saying that, okay, well, AI is amplifying this ability to the max, and now suddenly we have to protect our citizens. So now we are creating new levels of censorship, and then we are using it also not only to basically foreign adversary, but now we are seeing it also happening in, for example, in states in the US, banning LGBT books or something like this in schools because they're using now their own ideology to censor other things. And so now, how do you see this? How do you say this increase in censorship in the threats and facing these threats affecting the whole landscape of information? Are we going to have a divided internet where we have these silos of information that are being manipulated by the locals for the local population?
Thank you for the question.
Yes, yes. Well, yeah, a really good question and very timely because just 2 weeks ago, Meta announced their measures to fight the abuse of Gen AI in the election year, right? In especially EU Parliament elections and the US. And it was interesting because they say that they will, number one, starting from the transparency that I was talking about, so they will provide means for Gen AI content produced with their own products to be watermarked. Right, so that's the first measure. And then they will allow users of Meta products to disclose that they are the content they are posting is Gen AI content. But then they go and they say, we may apply fines, we may apply some measure to penalize people that fail to do so. So that is, it was really interesting and matches to what you're saying. So if they may apply some penalties, how they are going to do that? Who decides? Number one, when a person receives a penalty. Number two, why person A receives penalty and person B doesn't. What happens in the decision-making process. And it does become really creepy and risky for democratic purposes, for the free freedom of thought, freedom of expression, and etc. Because if you have a certain tendency, or if you have a certain decision-making criteria that, you know, is more left-leaning or right-leaning in a political context, or it is like supporting Brexit or doesn't support Brexit, or is in favor of Israel or in favor of Palestine, and so on. So you see, that announcement by Meta is exactly to your point. It was this soft language. We may apply penalties to people that fail to disclose Gen AI content, but it's a key question, how this is going to go on. You know, what is the decision-making process? And the first question is it transparent? Because if Meta decides, okay, we have a team that will do this content moderation, and it will do this decision when people fail to disclose Gen AI, what are this decision-making variables? Are they transparent? Can people know when they will be receive a penalty or not? So that is number one, like, point to avoid censorship, to avoid abuse of power from the side of you know, giant enterprise that is Meta, much more powerful than sovereign states. You know, so to avoid that abuse of power by an entity that was not elected, was not democratically chosen, so we have to pose those questions. So I don't have an answer, but I have a good example to your point exactly.
Regarding the, I may continue on the China topic. The TikTok is not the only one, so we've banned Chinese technologies in communication-wise on the network. So Chinese 5G technology is not allowed to be used in many of the Western countries. So it's a bit more than just, well, it's politics, it's finance, and so on. But same goes partly on the TikTok. And then we also talk about privacy, because the legislation in China is different. So you need to be able to share the information, and the officials of the TikTok, they have admitted that the central office in China, they have access to the information we use in EU. So that's already a breach towards the GDPR. So, I mean, what we do, we do basically nothing, and that's the one key aspect. So not just the political decisions, but also the privacy and also the influencing part. I'm strongly against TikTok for many reasons. Partly because of the cybersecurity, but partly also because of the algorithm, how it's being used. am I against having Chinese technology on the network? Well, we banned that on the network side, but all of us have the Chinese Wi-Fi router in our home. So, I mean, yeah.
Yes, but I would take a slightly different take on it, because personally I am a app and free speech absolutist. And I do not believe that a government, whatever country it is, should decide what the population can see, what they can hear. That's up to the population to decide. The information should be open for all. Even if it's bad information that the government thinks. If somebody says that Putin is a good person, and then you shut it down, that no, my population is not going to hear that, I think that's a bad thing. Let the population decide. Let me decide. I'm not totally dumb. So that some person sitting in the government, in a parliament, whatever country they are in, they will tell me that, hey, Mikhail, this is what you can hear, and this is you cannot. You can see this, and this you cannot, because I decided that that's a bad information. No. This is a free democratic society. I should have the power to freely decide what I want to see, right? Otherwise, we are eroding democracy in the name of security, as simple as that. So, yes, sir.
Give me one second. Paulina, will you grab the mic up front?
Thank you. So, Mika, I just want to respond to you because I was obviously wanted to respond to some of your intervention on the stage. So, from what I'm hearing, it looks to me that government is completely sort of handicapped in terms of how technology should be deployed to the society. And then also you made the point of saying that, you know, people should be held to the extent or hold to the standard of, you know, knowing what is good and being sort of ethical way of like doing things. I think that's a very sort of weak argument. My question to you is, if every other things, apart from the technology, because I assume you understand the harm that technology does in terms of how it affects how we live and how we do things. So my question to you is, if, for example, the pharmaceutical sort of industries and every other aspect of things that we do is being regulated heavily, right? In terms of the kind of food we eat, for example, that government look into the things or the food we eat so that people cannot be giving citizens poison. Why should technology be different? Or aren't you aware that people are just scammers? Thank you.
Yes. Well, as I said, that it's how you look at things. Do we want to be in a situation here where the government is the nanny and we consider that the population is not capable enough to decide what is good and what is bad, and we as government, or somebody as government, will decide that population? And if we think from a democratic perspective, that how much power you want to hand over to the government. Like if they are today deciding that we can see, we can hear, we can touch, we can feel these things and not that things, how do you know that government itself as an entity is not going to abuse that power to spread more control over the population, right? Like in Finland, we have a very high trust in the government, comparatively. In many countries, we don't. Even in USA, the trust in government is way lower, right? So in a society like that, where people are very much, they believe very much in the principle of freedom, are they actually willing to hand over more and more and more power to the government? And should it something that should be done? As I said, this is very much a divisive and personal opinion, but I think that as citizens, there should be certain level of freedom that I enjoy as a citizen. right? And not somebody else, someone else, allowing me to decide, or will decide on my behalf that what I can see. Let me see. And then I will decide. If you already take that freedom away from me, that I cannot even see the other part, the other side of the table, the other person's opinion, then we create very little individual silos all over the world where people don't communicate anymore. Is that, well, of course, that's a philosophical question, that whether we should do that, but personally, I'm against that. That's just my philosophical standing, as simple as that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a really difficult topic in general, because where do we draw the line? Even in the democracy happens in a bubble. So we still have boundaries. Democracy does not mean that you can do anything and everything. You have your boundaries. The same goes with the information. There are boundaries. There are legal. There are laws. So you can't have anything and everything. But how do we handle the censorship inside that bubble, where you comply with your legal obligations? And the censorship, I don't like censorship. I mean, we should be able to tackle that somehow. But legal law is a law. And there's always, there needs to be controls inside that bubble, that what can be seen and how those can be seen. Because people are different. So if everything is available for everyone within that bubble, even if that's legal, I mean, it can be harmful. It can be dangerous. So we need to have controls. That's my opinion.
We have time for one more, Paulina.
Hello, I'm Lavinia, and I'm a legal professional here, and I'm going to support Bruno. So actually, what I think about this subject is that if everything that goes on the internet is can be assumed to be fiction, then what could happen is that there is a regression of technology. So people don't use technology if they don't trust it. So this is, in my opinion, a bit the risk here, that if people lose trust in technology, they just won't use it. So I think that the biggest losers in this scenario would be actually the technology companies. So it's in actually their interest to kind of like regulate this thing, that their services do not become a platform of kind of fiction. So I don't know if I mean, from the marketing aspect as well, like if you have like the same view, if there is like if people don't trust marketing, then you know it's useless. It's a loss of revenue. And then the other question or like comment, which maybe would be a good idea to reflect on, is that besides like educating people about the day or how to recognize deepfakes and so on, would it be also like time to start kind of campaign on educating people? I mean, in the old world, which I am used to, like, you know, we were told, for example, don't leave your door open, you know, use a key, lock your door, put your property in a locked closet. If you are in a bar, like check that no one is putting stuff in your drink. Like, is it time to also educate people on how to protect themselves on the internet and not put such content which can be kind of used against them? And that's like some kind of concern that for future generations as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. Of course, I mean, I think governance is good business. I mean, simple as that. If you have a strong, robust governance approach inside the organization, regardless if you are a deployer of AI technology, if you're a user slash a provider or a deployer slash user of AI technology, is good for your organization, because it's good to build trust with not only your consumers but also your partners, all the other stakeholders of your organization. If you have all those good practices inside, right? So, and this comes actually from responsible business conduct. So, responsible, sustainable way to, carry out business as old as usual. Like this entire, there's an entire field of responsible business, sustainable business conduct, and so on. So it's not that AI governance, just started out of nowhere, just like magic. It's like very well rooted and connected in the idea that private actors, corporations, they play a huge role in society, and they have powers and they have responsibilities, and we have to acknowledge that it's not okay to do everything as a corporation, to have all sorts of impacts that your supply chain, your product, your services will have all sorts of impacts on society, on the environment, on communities, and etc. And you will have no responsibility for what your organization is doing. So it all starts from that. And exactly to her point, good governance is good business, and it will make your organization be trustworthy, also right now compliant with binding law. It's not, an if conversation that it was 4 years ago before the AI Act was a reality, right? There was 4 years of legislative process to enact this law. And back in that time, we were talking about a future that will come one day. But right now, at this day and this date, it's a reality. So it will come into force, whatever your opinion is, right? So in order to be compliant, in order to avoid, huge fines, in order to avoid very bad consequences to your brand, to your image, to your reputation, to your relationships, to your organizational relationships, to your business partners, and etc. So I think you are totally right. Good governance is good business.
Well, the great thing, I have to cut us off, but the great thing is we can do this for another hour, I bet. But the cool thing is that they're going to stick around for our networking side, because that is also such a huge part of what sets Epicenter Helsinki events apart. And we definitely want everyone here to have an opportunity to continue this conversation amongst yourselves over drinks, and there will be some food as well. So let's give a huge round of applause to Mikael, Bruna, and Marco. Thank you all so much. Thank you. I'm gonna stick on stage for a little bit, but Paulina can help you get unmiked. So, like I mentioned at the beginning of the afternoon, please. You don't have to stay up here and listen to me do this. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the session today, we're a community. These are the types of events and conversations that we like to host on a weekly basis. And so we have another fantastic event coming up next Tuesday, where we're going to host the second event in our Sustainable Solutions series. So this time we're focusing on energy. So we know that Finland stands at the forefront of integrating renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, and hydrogen power into its national grid. The country's commitment to reducing its carbon footprint and increasing energy independence sets a benchmark that should be looked at worldwide. There's a lofty goal of being carbon neutral by 2035. Finland needs to get there, and then we also need to brag about getting there, right? Which I will help as the New Yorker. But then April 18th, I want you to save the date for World Creativity and Innovation Day. This year, it's Tech Revolution. So the day is meticulously planned out into 3 pretty awesome segments. So we have our summit. Here, we're going to lead multiple panel discussions on really cool topics such as the future of recruitment, AI and the retail revolution, and sustainable solutions, spotlighting eco-friendly materials and products. There will also be an expo area, and this is where the magic happens for our partners. It's an exclusive opportunity for you or someone you know to showcase their products and innovations to a diverse and engaged audience. Last year, there were over 400 people who attended this event. This year, we're aiming for 500. So a great opportunity to showcase your products. And if you want to do that, I'm the guy that you talk to about setting that up. And then at the end, we have a freaking awesome party where we turn this place into the best rave in town with cool things that will happen throughout the whole evening. So this has been a really informative conversation. I want to thank you all so much for being as engaging as our community always is. There are points to take away. Privacy is a big thing. Governance is a big thing. We can't have it all, but hopefully we can start to have conversations where we begin to build trust and maintain that. So I thank you all so much for being here today. In just a few minutes, there will be food in the back doors. I implore you to please go have a bite, but also return back into the room so that we can network with one another. I'll also ask you to give me 2 minutes with our speakers before you bombard them with all of your thought-provoking questions, because we're just going to take a picture on stage, and after that, they're all yours. Okay? Well, thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you next week.